wet and rainy Sunday morning up here in the Eola Hills and outside of Amity, Oregon. Our next guest is, I don't want to call him an old timer, but he is definitely one of baseball history. We'll go that route. And our next guest is Dave Bristol, and Dave managed the Cincinnati Reds. The Cincinnati Reds, Milwaukee Brewers, the Atlanta Braves. And I'm missing one more.
Giants.
San Francisco Giants. And so, Dave, how you doing today?
I'm super.
Good.
We're really enjoying the World Series. Really enjoying it.
We were talking about that briefly. I'll tell you, people are kind of talking about the Cubs choking, but I'm not looking at it that way. I mean, the Cleveland Indians are a pretty good team.
They're a real good team. And Francona's daddy played for me his last year in baseball in 1970, and Tito was around the clubhouse all the time.
Right.
Went on some road trips with us as a bat boy, so I have a little connection to them, and his daddy was such a good man on the ball club. He and Dick Schofield were two veterans on that club that really, really were good leaders for us. I'll never forget it, and it's a pleasure to see Terry lead his daddy out at some of these openings and throw out the first pitch. I love it.
It is pretty cool. And what you're seeing, with Terry Francona is kind of old school baseball going on. And Kluber, for example, last night, pitches in game 4. He also pitched in game 1. He was a totally different pitcher than what he was in game 1.
What? You mean better?
He threw more breaking balls in last night's game.
I know.
And, he was – I honestly thought that the Cubs were going to get to him on 3 days rest. But, man, I was wrong. And I'll tell you, he came out throwing more breaking pitches, and – it's got the Cub hitters. They're kind of scratching their head, and here we are going into tonight's game with the chance that the Cubs might not see tomorrow.
Well, Bryant Baez has led that club a lot all year, and they have such a good hitting club, and right now they're not hitting. Mm-hmm. But it's like the old man said. It's like sheep jumping over a fence. One starts hitting, the rest of them follow.
Right.
And if that happens, you can watch out the last 3 games.
And that's the beauty of baseball.
It sure is. Surely is.
So let's chat about a little bit about your background. So you went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in Western Carolina. And then you went into professional baseball as well. And
I signed with the Reds when I was 17, and I went to school at Carolina and stayed in school my freshman year, and then didn't go to spring training, which was a mistake. But second year I went to Ogden, Utah, and the third year I went to Ogden, Utah, and we had a heck of a good club, won the pennant. Frank Robinson joined the team out of McClymonds High School in Oakland, and in 70 games he drove in 72 runs. Wow. Or 72 games, 70 runs, one or the other. You could see big league written all over him from the first time he swung the bat. And then I went in the Army and then came back out and played 55, 56, and in the first month of the season of 57, the Reds had some ball players at a team that folded in Bradford, New York, and they said, just keep them there. We'll transfer them over to Hornell, and they sent me to Hornell, New York to be a player manager. And from then on, I played 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, a player manager, until 62 when the Reds and it was very evident that Rose was going to be the second baseman. So I didn't play any in '62, and that's '61's the last year I played. Was a player manager, and Rose and there were 7 or 8 guys off that team that went to the big leagues from Macon, Georgia team.
Wow. So I have a couple of number one. The question is, I grew up in Idaho, so I know Ogden, Utah pretty well. What was it like playing in Ogden during those days? And then you also played in Visalia, in the old California League.
Yeah, and also managed San Diego and played in Multnomah Stadium.
Oh, yeah, you know.
Is it still there?
Kind of. Multnomah Stadium is now, what is it? It's a soccer-only facility. And so, yeah, so Multnomah Stadium became PG Park, and then it's now, I can't remember what it is, Providence Park, and it's a soccer-only facility now. They play a little football, but baseball's pretty much dead in Portland, Oregon.
Is that right?
Yeah, they have a Class A team.
We're in Salem?
Yeah, they have one in Salem, and then they have one in Hillsboro, just up the road.
Huh.
Yeah, baseball, they do have a couple of wood bat league teams in the collegiate summer leagues, but beyond that, there is no AAA team in Portland anymore.
I'll be done.
Yeah,
well, they had a good team that year. I was at San Diego. All those good players, McDowell, George Culver, Louis Tiant. God, they had a good club. In '64 and '65, I managed San Diego. And Sam McDowell, I think, was on that team.
Wow. And that's before the Padres were a Major League Baseball franchise.
Exactly. It was a farm club of the Cincinnati Reds.
Oh, wow. Wow, and so that's interesting.
Go ahead.
That's interesting.
Yeah, we won the pennant, beat Little Rock in the Little World Series in 7 games. But they were a lot of ball players went to the big leagues from the Coast League that year.
Right. And so what was it like playing in Ogden, Utah? I mean, you know, Utah's a different place.
Well, hey, it's wherever they send you. I loved it. I loved every place I ever was in professional baseball. I loved it. Ogden's a good town, and I lived just across the street from the place where the whole pioneer days, the rodeo and everything.
Yep.
That was neat too. We could walk out their front door and walk across the street and be in the arena.
Huh.
I loved that.
So what was
Ogden's a good town, and I guess now it's been a Dodger farm club for a long time.
Yeah, the Raptors. Yeah. Yep. And so Kinley
in 2007, the Reds general manager sent me back to Billings to look over the club, scout the team during the later part of the season for 2 weeks. And at that time, when I was there with Ogden, Dick Stewart was hitting home runs in Billings. It was a pirate farm club then. And we had a third baseman in Billings in 2007 that hit those high home runs the same way. Huh. He didn't make it to the big leagues, but he sure tore up that league pretty good. He was a third baseman out of Furman University in Greenville, South Carolina.
Huh.
Or maybe Wofford. Wofford.
I believe in Ogden in 2007, I believe Kenley Jansen was playing catcher for the Raptors. And, of course, now he's the Dodgers closer.
Just made reliever of the year, didn't he, in the National League?
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
And so...
Quite a transition. Quite a transition.
It is. And what do you think, if you had one moment in your career, what do you think the highlight of your career was?
Well, there'd be 2.
Okay.
First, July the 13th, 1966, when I was named manager to the Reds.
Okay.
And the second is getting to be in the '83 World Series with the Phillies.
Oh, yeah.
And the third would be coaching third base in 2 All-Star games, one in Houston and one in Washington.
You know, there's a couple of pictures that we have seen of you. You know, it's you and you've got the chaw on your cheek. You know, in a couple of those pictures, you remind me so much of Rocky Bridges. Do you remember Rocky?
He was my idol. He was my idol when he was with the Reds, and I later knew him when he was with the Angels. Dear friend from Idaho too.
Yes, he was. And it broke my heart when he passed away. I had talked to him a couple different times about coming on the show, but it never happened. And
is that right?
Yeah, doggone it. He
had baseball written all over him.
he crapped baseballs. I mean, he literally, and you and I have multiple mutual friends, and John D'Acquisto being one of them. John always spoke highly of Rocky Bridges, and it broke my heart the day that he passed away because I never got him on the show just to talk baseball.
I know it.
And
he's a storyteller too.
He is.
Can tell you a lot.
He is, and that's what excites me about bringing you on the show. You're a connection to baseball history, and you played and you managed for so long, and as great as the game is today, and I think it's pretty great. It could be said that baseball was greater back in your era, back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I remember growing up in Idaho, watching those 83 Phillies. I was an Atlanta Braves fan because WTBS was the station that we got to watch Major League Baseball on all the time. And so I remember Mike Schmidt and Pete Rose and Darren, all those guys, the Phillies, man, they were a thorn in the Braves' side.
Well, you mentioned John D'Acquisto, and I happened to see a picture of him in a Padre uniform on Facebook, and with him making taking the ball out of his glove in the first part of the delivery.
Right.
And I save it and I show it to high school and college pitchers because it's so graphic of how good the start of a delivery is. And if they can repeat that, that's the start of throwing strikes.
Right.
And I told him, I texted him and told him that because he was traded before I got to the Giants.
Okay.
But I saw him pitch when the Padres and everything.
Right.
And apparently he's a heck of an artist.
He is. In fact, he has done some artwork for the show that we have. He's a great artist, very talented man.
Very talented.
I mean, not only could he pitch. I mean, and I'll tell you, people talk about Aroldis Chapman and how hard he throws the ball. Uh-huh. I've heard stories of John, throwing just as hard, if not a little bit harder.
Wow.
And so
that's pretty good right there.
Yes, it is. And so the 83 Phillies, going to the World Series of the 83 Phillies, what was so special about the makeup of that team?
Well, the thing about it, we didn't beat the Dodgers all year, and we had to play them to get the goal. And boom, we came up and beat them and got to go to the World Series and won the first game against Baltimore.
Right.
And Carlton had to. It was a tough series, I'm telling you. And Rose and Smith didn't hit. They were kind of like Bryant and Baez right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think Smitty got one hit.
That's crazy.
And when that happens, of course, it's tough when you don't hit with your best players. You can't expect your pitching staff to pitch a shutout every game.
Right.
It's just, the World Series is who's playing the best ball in October, and it might be November.
Yep. Yeah, it's not about who's the best team. It's who's hot.
Well, there's no question that the Cubs proved that with winning all those games.
Oh, absolutely.
And,
but the Indians are hot right now, and they're doing it all. They're hitting, they're running, they're playing defense, they're pitching. They don't have to get their starters to the 7th inning. They could go 5 or 6 and get into that deep bullpen. Holy cow.
Well, I love the fact that Miller said every time Frangona asks him if he can go, hell, he goes.
Yeah.
It doesn't say I need a day off or I can't. Hey, the expression, the body language of the whole Cleveland team right now it tells you a lot, I think.
Well, it tells you that they're World Series champions. I don't want to call it, but the Cubs look a little defeated right now.
Well, hey, they got a heck of a manager, and he'll come up with something. It's not over yet.
That is true, and I think Joe Madden, if he isn't the best manager in the game, he's definitely one of them.
Oh, my goodness alive. He's showing everybody how to manage, and so is Francona.
Oh, absolutely. It's great. I think this World Series is the best outcome for this year for baseball. The Dodgers were playing well, and of course, odd year with the Giants, but I'll tell you, I think the right teams are in the World Series this year.
Well, it's just like I heard a while ago. Francona does what is necessary. One of the biggest moves he's made is sitting Napoli down and putting the other guy in, and look what happened.
Right.
And then he walked in the clubhouse and told Napoli, I know you're mad at me, but you're going to play cribbage with me before the game.
Right.
And then, boom, put him in for defense the last 2 innings. Hey, the Cleveland club looks like they tell him, hey, when you want me, I'm ready.
Yeah.
That's just the appearance they give me.
I want to get your take.
That's conducive to winning.
Absolutely. I want to get your take on the game, the way it's being played today. Back when you were managing, they didn't necessarily have the shifts like what they have today. What do you think about that? What do you think about, the replay system and the way the game is being played today?
Well, Cybermetrics is here to stay, so you better get with the program. It's here to stay.
That is true.
You watch games and over a season. If you're paying attention, you can move guys around because Jim Merritt pitched for us in Cincinnati in 67, 68. 69.
Mm-hmm.
He told me and told the shortstop, you get over in the 6th hole between short and third.
Right.
If the ball's hit back to the middle, that's my responsibility. The way I pitch, I want the shortstop in the hole. So, hey, if somebody tells you that, do it. And he had good enough control that he made it work that way.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. And I know they steal a lot of hits away, but I don't believe McCovey would have worried about the shift.
Right.
He'd have hit it over the fence.
Right. What
a great guy he was to manage. What a great guy he was.
You coached and managed so many. Of the guys that Brian and I grew up with. Mike Schmidt, Pete Rose, Lenny Dykstra. Some of the, you go back to that Big Red Machine. God, look at all those guys that, Bench and Concepcion and all those guys. Man, you had quite the career.
Yeah. I was, like you said earlier, the era of the 50s, 60s, 70s, pretty good.
It was really good.
I would happen to be in the middle of that. I've been around and managed or coached some of the best players that ever played the game.
And what's that like? When you sit down and think about that, there's some great players in the game today, But
Oh, no question.
no
question.
The players that you managed and that you were hanging out with back in the day, I mean, those guys are the ones that set the tables for the players today.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
The egos were huge. But I'll tell you what, you watch the way that Pete Rose played the game. There weren't very many that played the game harder than Pete Rose.
I don't know of anyone that did.
Love him or hate him. I'll tell you what.
One of my favorite players today is the center fielder for the Rockies, Charlie Blackmon.
Yeah, he's kind of old school.
He plays the game the right way.
Yeah, he's kind of old school. He plays it hard. He gets dirty. He's got a dirty uniform every game.
Yeah, that whole infield does.
Absolutely.
Mayhew and Arenado. Ooh, I saw Arenado play. I go to a lot of games in Asheville. That's too far away. It's not far away. But anyway, when he broke in it or came to Asheville, you could see he was going. I didn't realize he was going to be that good a hitter.
Right.
But he can feel. They got a heck of a good team.
They've got a young team, and with Carlos Gonzalez, who, I was with in Lancaster in 2006. I'll tell you what, I'm really surprised that they haven't figured out the pitching part of the game. And I mean, they could hit with the best of them.
Yeah, look what happened if Story hadn't gotten hurt.
Yep.
Golly, 27 home runs in a half of the year.
We could have been talking the Rockies in that second wild card spot instead of the Giants.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Let's talk a little bit about Pete Rose. We talked a little bit about him playing the game hard. There's some talk of him. Is it time to lay all the stuff to rest with Pete and get him inducted into the Hall? There is no doubt that his playing career screams he's a Hall of Famer and a first ballot Hall of Famer. Do you think it's time to put all that?
Yeah, but I don't think it'll happen with the Manfreds and the Seeligs and the Vincents. I don't during their reign, because they're all pups out of Giamatti. Right. I don't think that'll ever happen.
And that's too bad. I'm on the fence. I understand the whole gambling part. It's posted in every clubhouse in professional baseball, but Pete,
and you do have to uphold the integrity of the game.
Absolutely.
There's no question.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the question is with Pete is he paid his dues and I'm not the one to answer that. But
me either.
There is no doubt that he belongs in the Hall of Fame with his playing career.
I figured out the other day I was with him 10 different years.
Wow.
Plus 1 year, spring training before he came to the Macon Club. Nobody, they don't make them like him anymore.
They don't.
And you know what? He's not doing a bad job on Fox as an analyst.
I love him. With A-Rod.
They get more relaxed every game, he and A-Rod.
Yes,
and
they do.
a better job each day.
There was a clip of him the other day, excuse me, with Frank Robbins, or it's Frank Thomas, and A-Rod when he was talking hitting. And
that was wonderful.
He simplified it. He simplified it so much to where it had them both scratching their heads. But it's so true. There's a reason.
I've got that on my iPhone right now. I can show that to anybody.
Oh, it's awesome. And I shared it with quite a few of my buddies and said, look at this. I mean, he hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. Up, back, in or out.
People tend to overthink.
Yeah.
And I want to know why number 4? You wear in most of the Braves you wore number 1, but everywhere else you wore number 4.
Because with Carl Hubble wore number 4 with the Giants after retired, and somebody with the Braves were retired.
Okay.
So it wasn't available.
All right.
But I'm just, I don't know. I just love that number.
It is a good-looking number. It is a good-looking number. What was the best advice that anybody has given you during your baseball career? What was the best piece of advice?
Don't take yourself too seriously.
And is that the piece of advice that you pass down to the younger kids today?
I think so, yeah. A little, I'll think of his name in a minute. The guy wrote for AP. He and his brother, New York writers. He told me that the first year I came to the big leagues. And they were good friends, grew up with Bill DeWitt Sr.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that stands true today, very much so. You know, don't get carried away with your own ego.
Right.
Because sooner or later, somebody will cut you down.
Yeah, that's true.
So just be humble about it and be thankful for what baseball has done for you, not what baseball can do for you.
Let's end with this. I want to pick your brain a little bit about, so all these great players that you have worked with in the past, was there one or two players, for whatever reason, whether it be injury or burned out, that you thought was going to be a surefire major leaguer that didn't become one?
Yeah, there was a pitcher at Ogden, Utah in 1953 named Vern Kilberg. He was from Oakland, I think. Bobby Maddock was the Red Scout that signed him. He had big league written all over him. Fastball, a curve, and I went in the Army after that year, and I asked a boy at the golf tournament the other day whatever happened, and he played with him back at Ogden in '55, and why I don't know. And he must have hurt his arm.
Is that the same Bobby? Is that the same Bobby Maddock that was manager of the Blue Jays at one time?
Same Bobby Maddock. He signed Pinson, Robinson, Tommy Harper, Don Baylor. He signed a bunch of guys wherever he went. Jim Landis with the White Sox. If they ever have a Scouts Hall of Fame, he'll be in the top 1, 2, 3.
Right. Yeah, there needs to be one. Is he still alive?
It certainly does.
Is Bobby still alive?
No.
Doggone it.
That's right.
One of my favorite shows that I did was with George Genovese, and I got George on, like, what was it, about 2 months before he passed away, and I'll tell you, George was brilliant.
Well, let me tell you a Genovese story. I managed against him in Venezuela, and managed a lot of those guys that he signed with the Giants when I was at San Francisco. And I talked to him, I read his book, and then I talked to him like you did about a month before he died. And I'm not sure he remembered everything, but I'm glad I called him.
Yeah.
And I knew his brother Chick real well, too. It's just like you said, hey, people, and I'm glad you called, because people forget about the guys. I know a lot of baseball history. I'm 83 years old, and I keep up with it all the time. And I know stuff like some people don't even know Chick Genovese.
Right.
Or Bobby Maddock. You can't forget people who were so good to the game.
That is true. And, people like you are the favorites that we talk to, because, I mean, baseball, number one,
well,
baseball.
How'd you ever find me?
You commented on D'Acquisto's picture. You talked about that picture of John, going into his motion, and I remember seeing that, and I remember seeing your name, And so I'm like, Dave Bristol, that name rings a bell. So I'm a baseball card collector. And so I go to my baseball cards and I pull a couple of Dave Bristol cards out, when he was managing the Brewers and the Reds. And then, I started, doing some search. I found you on Facebook, and that's how it works. I mean, that's how I get connected with you guys. And,
I couldn't believe it the other day when you said the Oregon. I said, who knows me in Oregon? And what town in Oregon?
We live outside of McMinnville. And so McMinnville's about 40,000. So we're just a little west of Salem and just down from Portland. So
is that in the country where they raise a lot of cattle?
Wine, a lot of wine right now.
Okay.
So we're about
how far from where Bobby Dorr lived on the Rogue River?
Oh, Bobby is actually up in Junction City, which is about an hour from us. And so Bobby's about an hour from us.
Hello?
Yeah, Bobby's about an hour from us. Can you hear me?
About an hour?
Yeah, about an hour. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, he's just down the road.
He's a good friend of mine.
Bobby's a great guy. He's one that we haven't talked to about getting on the show yet. I would love to have him on the show. But I just don't know. He's a Hall of Famer, and so that's kind of intimidating a little bit.
No, he would. He would not. He's not that way.
Yeah,
he's the most gracious guy I've ever met. I'm telling you.
We might have to give him a call and get him on. And I know he's baseball history too. And
I guess
the one thing that I love baseball. I've loved baseball ever since being a young kid. I've worked with minor league clubs. I've worked for the Giants and the Diamondbacks, as clubhouse manager, doing different things with them. But baseball's a big family, and I'm realizing this more and more. And it's because of people like you, Fred Clare. You guys make somebody like me who, never really played the game. I mean, I played as a kid, but beyond that, I just have a passion for the game. And
well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad you do.
And I want to share it.
More people like you that carry on. Yeah.
And you've got a story to tell. All the guys from your era. Holy cow! I mean, you managed some of the greatest players of our time.
Yeah.
You played with some of the greatest players of our time.
We hadn't gotten mentioned. I just last Monday played in Bill Necro's golf tournament, and that was the 20th straight year I played in it.
Good old Nuxie.
And Thursday I played in Rick Honeycutt, the pitching coach with the Dodgers.
Yep.
Who's a real close friend of mine.
See, those are all connections from my childhood and from Brian's childhood. I mean, like I said, I grew up watching the Braves. Necro was a part of that. Dale Murphy was my favorite player growing up as a kid, and I've actually sat down and chatted with him a couple different times, and it's amazing. And that's what I like about baseball the most. And I love the game, but I love what goes on beyond the game. The fact that people like yourselves and different people are willing to sit down and talk about your experiences.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you.
So let's do this again. I
really appreciate it.
Let's do this again sometime.
All right.
And we'll give you
my number.
I do. And, think of a couple of good stories that are you'd love to share, and let's do it.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much for calling. It's been fun.
You're welcome. Hey, so what do you think is going to happen tonight? Do you think the Cubs bounce back?
I don't know. I'm going to the 8th tee box right now.
Attaboy.
I want to get home and watch that game.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll let you go. Hey, once again, thank you for coming on the show, and we'll look forward to chatting with you again.
Thank you so much.
All right, Dave. Thank you. All right. Once again, Mr. Dave Bristol. Man, Brian.
That's awesome.
History, Carl Erskine, all those guys. You know, this is why, and I've shared this with you many times before. I love the game of baseball, but this is what I like about the game.
Yeah, great stories. Love hearing the stories and the names. I mean, you said it a couple times. Our childhood, right there. Dave Bristol may not have been the superstar, the manager, superstar manager, but look at the guys he managed.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he had an impact on all these superstars.
Mike Schmidt.
Yeah. Louis Tiant.
Louis Tiant. I mean,
love it.
come on.
It's awesome.
Holy cow. So, hey, I'm Norm. That is Brian. We are going to be getting in touch with Bobby Dewar sometime. I don't feel so intimidated now.
Well, you know, I've spoken with him.
Right.
You know, good guy. Everyone has great things to say about him. Let's give it a shot. Why not?
I've got his phone number.
Let's call him up. I don't know how you got that, but let's give him a call.
Once again, I'm Norm. That is Brian. This is Clubhouse Chatter. Hey, we are sponsored by Baseballisms.com. If you like my shirt, if you like my Washington State Cougar colored Baseballisms hat, you can find them at Baseballisms.com. We are also sponsored by BaseballDudes.com. Chris Gazelle up there in Vancouver, Washington. Be the best. You must train like the best. Mitch Canham, Based by Pros, building athletes' education. His dad, Mark Canham, does our shirts for us. Hey, if you want a good shirt, give Mark Canham a call. Hey, YamhillToday.com. We stream live every week. Hey, if you got a idea for a show, shoot me an email, normbo18@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter, Clubhouse Chatter 1T, Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, MLB.com blogs. I'm Norm. That's Brian. Hey, we're going to be on again next week. Are we clear? We got the clear from the mothership?
Mothership is flowing the coop, so we can do whatever we want.
So, say we'll be back next week.
Sure, we'll say it. Who knows if we will, but we probably will.
Hey, and you could catch Brian on YamhillToday.com with some high school football action. McMinnville Grizzlies head up to
Central
Hillsboro
Catholic.
to play the Central Catholic University.
The University of, yes.
And so should be a decent game. I think McMinnville's actually, it's a tall order, but they've got a possible shot at this one.
It'll be fun. Coach McGirvin's got them playing hard, and you know it's not the Central Catholic of previous years, so they've lost a game or two, but still a tall order. Still tall order.
I also want to give a shout out to Charlie Lau Jr., who passed away Friday morning of natural causes in Florida. You can catch his shows. I got a couple of them posted on MLB.com blogs, Clubhouse Chatter. One is an old Blog Talk radio show from about 3 or 4 years ago, and then we had him on. And Charlie was a hitting machine. He took the torch from his dad and taught the Lau method of hitting, which is really good. I mean, he's worked with some of the greatest, George Brett, A-Rod, and Charlie, you will be missed, and rest in peace, my friend. Hey, we'll see you guys next week.